Something is quietly developing inside the Minnesota Vikings ahead of training camp. And while everyone keeps talking about the quarterback situation, there are several other position battles that could end up having just as much impact on how this roster looks when the regular season begins. Some of these competitions are flying completely under the radar, but they may ultimately decide who earns meaningful snaps, who survives final roster cuts, and who becomes one of the biggest surprises of the entire preseason. As training camp approaches, the coaching staff will be watching every rep, every practice, and every preseason snap, because the margin separating several of these players is incredibly small. And when you take a closer look, there are legitimate battles happening across multiple position groups that deserve far more attention than they have received so far. So, without further ado, let's get straight to the point. Hit the like button, join this fan community, and write in the comments, "My heart bleeds purple." Let's begin with the wide receiver room, where the competition appears much more complicated than it initially seems. Instead of simply asking who will make the roster, the bigger question becomes what kind of role each player can carve out inside Kevin O'Connell's offense. Ty Felton enters camp in an interesting position. Rather than directly competing with Minnesota's established stars, much of his challenge revolves around proving that he belongs on the final roster, while also showing enough upside to potentially challenge for additional offensive responsibilities. The expectation remains that Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Jawan Jennings, and Miles Price are all in strong positions to secure roster spots. Price's value comes primarily from special teams, where he established himself as one of the better kick and punt returners in the league, despite some costly ball security issues that left a lasting impression. Those fumbles remain an important storyline because they demonstrate just how thin the line can be between becoming an impact player and becoming a liability. If Price can eliminate those mistakes, his place on the roster becomes even stronger. His return ability gives Minnesota an element that is difficult to replace, making him an extremely valuable piece of the special teams unit. But perhaps the most fascinating name in this competition is Dillon Bell. Reports from off-season workouts suggested that Bell consistently caught the attention of observers because of his versatility. Unlike a traditional receiver, Bell offers flexibility that could make him extremely valuable in this offensive system. He can line up in the slot, move into the backfield, and create mismatches by being deployed in multiple alignments. While Ty Felton may possess a broader route tree, Bell's overall football skill set creates a legitimate debate over which player ultimately provides greater value to the offense. That versatility matters because Minnesota's offensive design frequently rewards players capable of moving around the formation. Coaches are constantly searching for players who force defenses to adjust before the snap, and Bell appears capable of becoming that kind of chess piece. If he continues building on what was reportedly shown during OTAs and minicamp, his case for making the roster only becomes stronger once preseason games begin. The possibility of a surprise roster decision cannot be ignored either. While keeping 6 wide receivers remains the more likely scenario, there is also a realistic path where Minnesota keeps only 5. If that happens, every preseason practice suddenly becomes critical. Every dropped pass, every special teams rep, and every opportunity with the second-team offense could significantly influence the coaching staff's final decision. Ty Felton may currently appear to have an inside track, but training camp has consistently shown that projected depth charts can change very quickly. The next battle shifts to the running back position, where experience faces explosive athleticism. Aaron Jones brings years of NFL knowledge, a complete understanding of offensive responsibilities, and the trust that comes from being an accomplished veteran. Across from him stands Deontay Claiborne, whose physical talent has already generated excitement inside the organization. Aaron Jones himself acknowledged what immediately stands out: about Claiborne. According to Jones, the rookie possesses a different gear once he steps onto the field, even comparing his burst and acceleration to Jahmyr Gibbs. That kind of praise from an experienced veteran naturally raises expectations, but athletic ability alone rarely determines playing time in the NFL. For Claiborne, the biggest obstacle is not running with the football. Instead, it is mastering every responsibility required from an NFL running back. Understanding protections, recognizing blitzes, and executing pass protection assignments are often what separate talented rookies from players coaches trust in meaningful situations. Those details become especially important in Kevin O'Connell's offense, where protecting the quarterback remains a top priority. From a pure rushing perspective, there is every reason to believe Claiborne can become a dangerous weapon. His downhill running style and explosive speed provide qualities that could make him increasingly difficult to keep off the field. Early in the season, experience may favor Aaron Jones, but as the months progress and Claiborne becomes more comfortable within the system, this competition could evolve dramatically. By November or December, the depth chart might look very different from what everyone expects entering training camp. And that's exactly why this battle deserves so much attention. The outcome won't necessarily be decided during the first week of camp. It could develop gradually, with every preseason performance adding another layer to one of the most intriguing storylines surrounding the Vikings as they prepare for the upcoming season. What do you think will be the most important training camp battle outside of quarterback? Share your thoughts in the comments, because this competition could shape far more of the Vikings' season than many fans currently realize. Now, let's shift over to the defensive side of the football, because one of the most fascinating competitions in all of training camp could be taking place in the secondary. At first glance, many fans may assume the cornerback depth chart is already set. But once you dig a little deeper, there is a legitimate battle brewing that could have a major impact on Brian Flores' defense throughout the season. James Pierre appears to have a strong grip on one of the outside cornerback spots, but the real intrigue begins with the competition for the next significant role. That battle centers around Isaiah Rodgers and rookie Charles Demings, and this is where things become extremely interesting. Charles Demings enters training camp carrying plenty of momentum from what he accomplished during the off-season program. Coaches have reportedly been impressed not only by his physical ability, but also by his maturity and football intelligence. For a rookie coming from Stephen F. Austin, earning that kind of praise this early is certainly noteworthy. His production in college speaks for itself as well. Opposing quarterbacks completed less than half of their passes when targeting him. He posted an outstanding passer rating allowed, broke up 9 passes, and intercepted 4 more. Those are impressive numbers regardless of the level of competition. Of course, the jump to the NFL is an entirely different challenge. Covering receivers in the NFC North is nothing like facing the competition he saw in college. Every week, he'll potentially line up against some of the most talented playmakers in football, and that learning curve cannot be ignored. However, if he continues showing the same instincts, discipline, and confidence that reportedly stood out during off-season practices, the Vikings may find themselves with a difficult decision much sooner than expected. Standing in his way is Isaiah Rodgers, a veteran who has already shown flashes of high-level play. His performance against Cincinnati last season demonstrated exactly what he's capable of when everything comes together. On that day, he looked like one of the best cornerbacks on the field. The challenge, however, has been consistency. Outside of that dominant performance, his play was far more up and down throughout the year. That inconsistency opens the door for Demings. If the rookie delivers an outstanding preseason while continuing to impress the coaching staff in practice, Minnesota could seriously consider accelerating his development instead of slowly bringing him along. Brian Flores has never been afraid to trust young defensive players if they prove they are ready. And this could become another example of that philosophy. The safety room presents another battle worth watching. Theo Jackson and Jay Ward are both fighting for an important role in a defense that relies heavily on 3 safety packages. That makes this competition far more significant than a typical backup battle. Theo Jackson appears to have the early advantage. Flores has shown confidence in him for quite some time, even playing a role in his contract extension. That familiarity with the defensive system naturally gives Jackson a head start entering camp. He understands the scheme, knows the expectations, and has already earned the coaching staff's trust. Jay Ward, however, brings intriguing upside. Since arriving in Minnesota, opportunities have been limited because of the talent that has existed ahead of him on the depth chart. With Harrison Smith, Josh Metellus, and previously Cameron Bynum occupying major roles, meaningful defensive snaps have been difficult to find. But every new season creates fresh opportunities, and this could finally be Ward's chance to prove he deserves a larger role within the defense. If Ward shows noticeable growth during camp and preseason action, this battle could become far closer than many people anticipate. Every practice rep, every special teams snap, and every defensive series in preseason games will matter, because the Vikings place tremendous value on versatility in the secondary. Finally, one of the most overlooked competitions of the entire summer may actually involve special teams. While it won't receive nearly as many headlines as the offensive or defensive battles, the punter competition between Johnny Hekker and Brett Thorson could quietly determine whether Minnesota fields one of the league's very best special teams units. Johnny Hekker arrives with an outstanding NFL resume. For years, he was considered among the elite punters in football, and although age has naturally reduced some of his leg strength, he continues to perform at a very high level. His consistency, durability, experience, and ability to contribute on trick plays by throwing the football all work in his favor. Brett Thorson, meanwhile, represents the future. Coming off an award-winning college career, he enters camp with one of the strongest legs in the competition. His ability to generate hang time, produce exceptional spin, and force returners into difficult situations gives him an entirely different profile. His raw talent is impossible to ignore, and if he consistently outperforms Hekker throughout training camp, the coaching staff will have a difficult decision despite Hekker already being under contract. That uncertainty perfectly summarizes what makes this year's training camp so compelling. While quarterback naturally dominates the conversation, several other roster battles could dramatically influence how competitive this Vikings team becomes once the regular season begins. Whether it's the race for wide receiver depth, the emergence of an explosive young running back, a rookie cornerback pushing for immediate playing time, the battle for valuable snaps at safety, or even the fight to become the team's punter, every one of these competitions has the potential to reshape the roster before Week 1. The next few weeks will reveal which players simply arrive at camp, and which ones force the coaching staff to completely rethink their plans. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these position battles are you watching most closely? And which player do you believe will be the biggest surprise of Vikings training camp? Leave your prediction down in the comments, because I'm genuinely interested to see where Vikings fans stand before camp gets underway. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want exclusive Vikings coverage throughout training camp, preseason, and the entire NFL season, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another update. Thanks for watching. And, as always, SKOL Vikings.